Remember that video game where the yellow ninja tells the blue ninja to get over here, and then they fought and killed each other and a slew of other characters in brutal, gruesome, and over-the-top fashions? Remember how cool we all thought it would be to see those characters brought to life on the big screen in a movie? Remember when they gave it a couple tries in the 90s? And how terribly awful they were? Well, my fellow fans of absurdly cruel and vicious violence, we all knew it was only a matter of time before they gave this mayhem ensuing madness another go, and now we get to witness an entirely different take on the good vs. evil superpowered Fight Club, so put on your favorite colored ninja mask, and let's take a glance at the 2021 Mortal Kombat. We kick off with 7 of the best minutes of the film at the Hanzo Hasashi compound in Japan 1619. Gosh, I wonder why they released this early. Seems like another ordinary day of farming and grabbing buckets of water until things turn bloody due to the arrival of Bihan and a couple of his fellow Lin Kuei members. Quickly and sadly, we see the future Sub-Zero corner Hanzo's wife and son and turn them into the most literal and emotionally chilling ice sculpture, which ends up being the direct cause of our very first action scene. Right away, the choreography of this assault convincingly made me feel like I was viewing a well-executed real-life interpretation of Mortal Kombat's brutality. After some gory slayings, Hanzo comes face-to-face with his arch-nemesis, and the two clash in an epic face-off that ends with Bihan stabbing the shit out of Hanzo, effectively eradicating the Shirai Ryu clan. Though, upon Hanzo dying, a fiery wave overcomes him and transports him away. Then suddenly, Raiden appears to rescue Hanzo's daughter. Why does he care about saving this baby, you ask? Well, the text on the screen reveals to us that the Earthrealm is on the verge of being catastrophically fucked by Outworld if they lose one more tournament of Mortal Kombat. But thankfully, the prophecy also makes mentions of a new group of heroes led by a descendant of Hanzo's bloodline. Clearly it must be his daughter we just saw taken by Raiden, you must be saying to yourself, but oh how wrong you would be. Forget that baby and the importance it unambiguously had. It's time to fast forward to the present day and turn our focus to the real standout, unique, and charismatic hero of the film, Cole Young, the great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandkid of Scorpion. If you're wondering why you may not recognize this most iconic and distinguished Mortal Kombat character, it's because he's not from any of the games. They made him just for this movie, because that's what everyone wanted, a film based off a long-running, well-established video game series centered around a character that hasn't been in any of them. This plank of wood has about as much likability as a plank of wood, and for some reason gives me a vibe of a B-grade Fast and Furious character. So Cole is an amateur MMA fighter getting bottom-of-the-barrel pay for last-minute fights, and who shows up to his latest fight to spectate? James Olsen from Supergirl? Oh wait, he's playing Jax! How did Jax find our main character? Shut up, that involves story development. Jax ends up being his unlucky charm as Cole takes the L, and we quickly shift gears over to Outworld where Shang Tsung orders Sub-Zero to go on an Earthrealm's champion killing spree, so the prophecy never comes true. Why did Bihan decide to drop his name and take on the mantle of Sub-Zero? Why does he take commands from Shang Tsung? How is he currently alive and kicking after all these centuries? Shut up, that involves story development. So Jax goes to speak with Cole after his loss to confirm that he indeed does have a Mortal Kombat logo birthmark, which piques his interest, since Jax also has one, though he wasn't born with his. But this revelation takes place in the midst of them driving for their lives from Sub-Zero's attack, and instead of driving off in a different direction when they get cornered, Jax stays back to fight and lets Cole take the car so he can go find Sonya Blade, because apparently that birthmark of his means he's a chosen champion of Earthrealm, and the bad guys will stop at nothing to kill him, which also means they'll stop at nothing to kill Jax, so why don't the two of them fight him together? I mean, it wouldn't have made much of a difference, but it would have been more logical. But who really cares, because here comes some more fighting! Sub-Zero makes pretty quick and easy work of Jax, who ends up in quite the shitty situation as we witness both of his arms get frozen up to the shoulders and shattered into pieces before getting kicked a few stories down and left in a bloody mess. Cole meets up with Sonya Blade so we can learn a bit of her backstory and how she's obsessed with finding out more about this dragon tattoo, even though she doesn't have one, and the long-standing history of Mortal Kombat. Also, we find out she has Kano held captive, who's a real asshole, but a solid dose of absurd comedic relief throughout the film. It isn't long before they're paid a visit from everyone's favorite ninja turned lizard, Reptile, who unfortunately doesn't last long and has his heart literally ripped out of his chest by Kano. Shortly afterwards, they make their journey to Raiden's temple and are greeted by Liu Kang, who couldn't be happier they arrived as they need to start training immediately in preparation for this tournament that they just found out was real. We find out Liu Kang has been tasked with finding Earthrealm's remaining champions, and because of this, he stumbled upon the near-to-death and armless Jax and brought him to the temple to be saved. Then the crew meets Raiden, the god of thunder that oversees Earthrealm, and he's immediately like, "Pfft, you're all fucking losers." Then the temple gets invaded by Sub-Zero, Mileena, and Shang Tsung, only for Raiden to pop up a moment later like, nah, get the fuck out of here. Great work, God, who wasn't supposed to interfere. Throw up that protective shield that I'm sure won't be easily taken down later. This team of champions needs to get to training so they can find out all their superpowers. I mean, Arcana. That's right, everyone with a dragon tattoo can eventually unlock their Arcana and gain supernatural abilities, like how Liu Kang can shoot fireballs. I love the moment when they're training and Liu Kang keeps hitting Kano with the low sweeping kicks, and Kano's like, is that the only move you know? Fuck, man, the number of times I played those games and dealt with someone who pulled that shit. Wanted to smack him upside the head with the controller. After an extensive couple rounds of training, the group go to have dinner, and Kano manages to unlock his Arcana over an argument about an egg roll. If this is a superpower instilled upon them, why would it make any sense for his laser to shoot out of only one of his eyes? In the games, it made perfect sense because it was enhanced cybernetics that were surgically placed onto his face that gave him the laser. But sure, let's go with super lasers that only want to work out of one eye instead. In the midst of more training, it becomes clear that Cole is having a rough time unlocking his superpower, and even though it's literally his first day becoming aware of the existence of this whole thing, Raiden's fed up with his shit. He tells Cole about his lineage and the reason why he was the only one born with a dragon tattoo. Why didn't he do that when he first arrived at the temple? Great question. And then he tells Cole to go home, and like a sad puppy dog with his tail between his legs, he does. Yup, even though he still has the tattoo, which means people will still come hunting for him, he heads back home with no hesitation to put his family in danger like any good protagonist should. Forget the righteous cause you just learned about and convinced yourself was a necessary path to follow. Go back home and mope about your amateur fighting skills, bud. We pop over to Outworld for a moment so Shang Tsung can introduce a few more characters from the games, and Cabal pays Kano a visit to convince him to be a bad guy, which obviously happens with no trouble. So, Kano effortlessly takes down Raiden's protective shield and re-enters Shang Tsung and company so we can get a shit ton of fights taking place simultaneously. There's Sonya vs Mileena, Liu Kang vs Cabal, Jax, who has been given some measly robotic arms vs Reiko, and Goro was kind enough to bring the party over to Cole's house so he didn't have to feel left out. Mileena gets the better of Sonya but doesn't deliver the final blow due to her not having a dragon tattoo, so Kano steps in to continue the fight instead and leaves her for dead under some debris. But not if Jax has anything to say about it. You see, while attempting to lift the debris and rescue his fellow main character, Jax finds out he's actually Cyborg from the Justice League because his Arcana allows him to magically upgrade his robo-arms. Yeah, so is he only able to upgrade his arms because that's the only metal part of him? Like, if he had more metal parts, could he choose to upgrade those as well? I'm confused as to what his Arcana actually is. Just like Kano, they could have just gone the established lore of the video games route where his arms were simply enhanced cybernetics. Much more logical and understandable. But no, these aren't just fighters with sensible backstories that have made it here because of their superior skill sets and experience. They are chosen champions with superpowers and tattoos. How does Cole manage to hold up against Goro, the boss of many Mortal Kombat games, you wonder? Like an absolute fucking champ. Go ahead and disregard the entirety of him getting his ass kicked this whole movie, put him straight into a boss level fight, and watch his superpowers unleash. What are this new character's unique and exciting powers? What are this new character's unique and exciting powers? I'm not leading up to anything here, I'm genuinely asking because I'm not too sure. He makes like a Themyscira armor looking sweater that has the absorb and redistribution of kinetic energy quality of the Black Panther suit. Oh, and it can form blades on his forearms, and probably do anything else you could ever imagine. It was really hard to like or appreciate his Arcana, as I was never able to fully understand it. As far as I'm concerned, his superpower is plot armor. And what a shitty way for Goro to go out. Dude barely makes his presence felt before Cole forces him to chuck up the deuces. Whatever, I guess. Maybe he'll come back as a zombie someday. So, Raiden opens up a portal to let Cole back into the club since he has a power now, and just as quickly as he gave up earlier, he jumps right back into action because who honestly gives a shit about solid character development anymore? Cole arrives at the temple, Shang Tsung takes Kung Lao's soul, and Raiden teleports all the good guys away to the Void, a realm in between Earthrealm and his where Shang Tsung is unable to follow them. Jeez, would have made a whole lot more sense to have everyone train there instead. There, Cole takes his opportunity to be the leader that no one wants him to be and has Raiden, who remember isn't allowed to interfere in any way, send each of them to fight these villains in different locations one-on-one, saving Sub-Zero for last to take on as a team. Do I have an issue with this logically? Yes. Do I care all that much? Not when it's followed up by some more fighting scenes. So most of these are redemption battles, with another round of Jax vs. Reiko, Liu Kang vs. Cabal, Sonya vs. Kano, with all of our heroes coming out victorious. Since Sonya kills Kano, she officially has a dragon tattoo now, and she manages to unlock her superpowers in about a minute flat as we see her fire her signature purple sonic waves to aid Cole in his battle against Mileena. Suddenly, Sub-Zero takes Cole's family hostage and freezes them, leading the young plank of wood to chase after the icy ninja through a portal that leads them to a one-on-one battle. Guess that whole strategy of taking him on as a team is out the window. It's evidently noticeable from the start that Cole doesn't stand a chance, and just as shit gets shitty for him, his ancestor rises up straight out of hell to save him. Hanzo Hasashi, though he has now officially taken the mantle of Scorpion. We even get to hear his most infamous quote ever. Get over here! Scorpion and Sub-Zero go on to have the best fight of the movie that ends with a team-up of the Hasashi bloodline members delivering the final blows to Bihan, with the icing on the cake being Scorpion breathing some fire to burn the villain to a crisp. The rest of the heroes meet up with Cole after Scorpion takes his leave, Raiden actually pays Cole a compliment, and Shang Tsung steps in for one last evil foreshadow, claiming he will bring armies next time and uses some magic to take away the dead bodies of Sub-Zero and Goro before Raiden gets him to fuck off by dropping some thunder on him. The last little stinger we get is Cole picking up his things from the gym, as he's no longer an amateur MMA fighter, he's on to more important things like looking for new champions for Earthrealm, specifically in Hollywood. Then we see a movie poster listing Johnny Cage as the lead, giving an obvious sign that he'll be around for the next installment, and that's it. There's the breakdown of Mortal Kombat. You know, it's really a shame because the film started off on such a strong note and it just never seemed to match or exceed that same intensity throughout the rest of the film. The casting seemed to come off as a bit of a hit or miss for me. Most of it worked, but where I found and noticed believability in the actors portraying the likes of Sub-Zero, Scorpion, and Kano to name a few, I felt myself being taken out of the element, so to speak, by the performances of Shang Tsung, Raiden, and Cole Young. Shang Tsung wasn't necessarily intolerable, but I just never felt intimidated by him in the way that I at least somewhat did by Sub-Zero. Other than taking out Kung Lao, he never has a chance to show why he's in the position he is as leader of Outworld. Why is Raiden such a dick? He's the protector and overseer of Earthrealm, and he acts like he's babysitting a bunch of unruly toddlers the whole film. His lack of faith in Cole is completely nonsensical given the fact that he's aware of his lineage and knows that he's the main element to having the prophecy come true. But nah, let's just send him home after a few hours of whooping his ass instead of teaching him anything, giving him any sort of motivation, or caring about the fact that he's just learned about all this and has a legitimate reason as to why he's having a difficult time. Which leads me to Cole. Oh, fucking Cole. Why anyone thought it was a good idea to bring this absolute wet rag of an actor slash character in to be the central protagonist is beyond me. He lacks anything close to charisma, has the least intriguing skill set, and is only relevant due to being a descendant of one of the most prominent characters of the franchise, which does not increase his likability in the slightest, by the way. Shit, I almost wish Scorpion burnt him to a crisp at the end too, just for being a piss-poor excuse of a Mortal Kombat character. The action held its own, and I did at many times feel like I was watching a creatively put together imagery of what the game's fighting would look like in real life, minus one or two fights. I'm not the biggest fan of the Arcana concept though. I don't really like the idea that you're not even allowed to compete in these competitions unless you have a dragon tattoo or killed someone that has one. I get that it's a somewhat believable reason as to why these characters gain supernatural abilities, but it wasn't at all necessary. Like, they didn't have this in the games. It's just been pretty well established and accepted that these characters live in a universe where this shit exists. And I don't like the limitation it involves either, as it makes it seem like you only have a finite amount of people to add to your roster when you have Shang Tsung claiming to bring armies from Outworld. Didn't seem like any of the bad guys had the dragon tattoo, and if they did, they sure as hell never pointed it out or made a big deal about it. It just felt like an element they could have left out altogether, and it would have given them more time to dive deeper into other components. Without question, the best part of the whole thing was everything involving Sub-Zero and Scorpion's rivalry. The beginning sequence and end fight scene with those two are the most compelling and entertaining scenes of the whole movie for me. And I swear, if Bihan doesn't get resurrected as Noob Saibot for the next movie, I'm going to be super let down. Long story short, Bihan was the first Sub-Zero, like in the movie, and died, like in the movie, where he eventually came back as Noob Saibot, a demonic blacked out form of what he once was, and then Kuai Liang, Bihan's younger brother, goes on to become the second and more well-known Sub-Zero, the one that actually has a bit of a moral compass. In the final fight scene, Bihan strips away the blue armor to reveal an all-black ninja suit underneath, which gave off heavy vibes of Noob Saibot, so I'm really looking forward to that. There's honestly a decent amount more I could say, as I've always been a big fan of the iconic video game franchise, but I'll bring it to a close by saying this. It It wasn't the greatest of movies, but I don't think you'd be expecting that going into a Mortal Kombat movie. It was a solid improvement on its predecessors from the 90s and was enjoyable enough to please most fans of the games and get us a bit amped for the sequel. As always, I'd love to see your thoughts and opinions in the comment section. Like the video if you enjoy this content, and I'll catch you at the next review.